I am so thankful that everybody has joined us this evening. This would be my most successful virtual meeting with about 180 people that have registered for this. So I am so thankful to everyone for being here this evening. I'd like to start out by giving a very big special shout out and thank you to our Donelson neighbor, Tara Shaver, who has put together all the logistics to help make this meeting successful, along with Stephanie Gavin and Angie Swan. So thanks to them. They are going to be managing the logistics. I'm going to hand it to them in just a moment to go over some of the logistics. But first, I just kind of wanted to set the stage and give a little bit of an overview about what our goals here really for the meeting is tonight. I think as everybody has seen very visibly, we've had a growing presence of homelessness in the Donelson area. And as you can imagine, I get a lot of phone calls, emails, social media tags with a wide variety of opinions and what people would like me to do. Everything from folks wanting police to remove them immediately, to asking me how folks could organize coat drives and everything in between. So what I thought would be a good thing to do is to bring everybody together, to bring the subject matter experts, as they say, to educate all of us about what they are doing and how we can engage and how we can support their efforts. Of course, ultimately, we want fewer homeless camps because we want to get our unhoused neighbors into housing and we want to help them. So what's the best way to do that? You know, it's something that is one of the most complex issues that we deal with, and it's been a big learning experience for me. About a couple years ago, I decided to really start to get engaged and figure out, very similar to a lot of you that have joined us tonight, wondering what can I do to help. I wondered the same exact thing a couple years ago when one of our Donelson neighbors told me about a homeless camp that we had in the district. And I helped organize volunteers in Donelson to do a supply drive, cleanup, and to actually speak to the folks who are living there, and to really humanize the issue and to really understand and hear directly from those folks who are living there. One of the folks that was living there, we were able to get her on the waiting list for housing. So that was a kind of a success story, very happy about. So, like I say, I've gotten such a wide variety of inquiries and comments from folks that I thought we'd bring together the folks who really know about this issue and deal with it day in and day out. First, we're going to be hearing from Judith Tackett and Troy Jenkins in our Metro Homelessness Impact Division. We'll then hear from Colleen Lampa with People Loving Nashville. Followed by Ashley Blum with Park Center Nashville, and then Paula Foster, who's executive director of Open Table Nashville. And that's one of the other things I did also about a year ago or so. You know, Metro has a cold weather preparedness plan that it really is about bringing a lot of nonprofit partners together. And I did engage with Open Table about a year ago. I went out with a group of folks and to where our unhoused neighbors are and encourage them to come out of the cold and go into the shelters. So they were both very much eye-opening learning experiences for me. And so as you'll learn from the folks tonight, I hope that you'll engage and be part of their efforts as well. After that, we'll hear from Sergeant Jeff White with the Hermitage Precinct. As we know, our police deal with everything and they're on the front lines of everything. And so we wanted to get an input and perspective from our Hermitage Precinct, at which time then we'll pivot the conversation to talk more about panhandling, because some of the comments and inquiries and things that I've gotten from folks sometimes lump in panhandling with homelessness in somewhat of a similar light, but of course they're different issues. So we wanted then to kind of pivot then to start talking about panhandling, what it is, what it's not, how can we best support folks that are legitimate, and what do we do about folks that are not. And so Sergeant White can kind of help us with that. And then we'll also hear from our state representative, Darren Jernigan, who has experience dealing with this issue and legislatively and whatnot. So that's kind of just setting the stage there. I know there's a lot of folks who wanted other nonprofit partners to speak also, and they wanted to bring a couple of folks asked if we could actually bring some homeless folks to speak so we could hear from them. All wonderful suggestions, but of course we could have a 3-hour meeting here doing all of that. But what we did talk about is very willing to have a follow-up meeting after this, if we need to, and if we'd like to. Very willing to do that. So let's see how this goes. We have a number of questions that folks have submitted that we hope to get to and answer. But first, we're going to, I believe, open up a poll so that folks can put in questions and get an idea of who's joining us tonight and whatnot, and what would you like to see from future meetings. So before we begin, I'm going to turn it over to Tara. She's going to go over some of the logistics of this meeting, and then we'll kick it off from there. So Tara, it's all you.
Great. Oh no, look, I've turned all weird and green. I'll go off video. I'm not sure how that happened. It's great to see everybody here tonight. We're over 100 participants, which was better than my prediction. So it is awesome to see everyone. We are your cruise ship directors for this evening. So you'll see that beside my box and my name, it says questions. So if during the session you have questions that you don't want to put in the public chat, you can send them to me directly and I will either catalog them for a future meeting, or if we have time, I'll make sure they get submitted. My friend and co-supporter, Angie Swan-Jones, is available for tech support if you have Zoom issues, as well as Stephanie, who is also available for tech support. So either Stephanie or Angie are named as tech support and can help you out if you have any troubles during the meeting and can walk you through any of those issues that you might have. So you can feel free when we get to the question and answer portion at the end. If you want to use the reaction buttons at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a computer, then you can raise your hand or do a thumbs up or something of that nature at any time just to show support. But particularly when we get to the Q&A, that's a great way to be seen and make sure that with 5 screens of people that we can see that your hand is raised. So if you want to give that a try now, you can. And I see that most of you have found the polling option. This was a little bit of a test run just to see how it would work before we get to some of our important questions at the end. But if you did not find the polling, if it popped up and disappeared for you, at the bottom of your screen, you should have something that allows you to hit poll and bring that poll back up. We are still getting responses to that, so I will leave it up for a few more moments. And just a reminder that we are recording. So if for some reason you don't want your face or your name shown for public consumption once we share the recording through the people who maybe weren't able to be here tonight, or through some of the folks who find out about it after we've held the meeting, then just feel free to turn your camera off and maybe change your name to an initial or a couple of initials. Don't get funny. If you get funny, we'll remove you from the meeting because we can't trust that you're not a Zoom bomber. So don't be cute. Just try to keep it clean. If you say you're no one, I've already removed no one from the meeting. So just try to clean up, you know, what your name looks like in case you just want to remain anonymous throughout. But again, you can submit those questions anonymously by sending them to me. I'm not going to be sharing who shared those questions. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And we really look forward to the rest of this conversation. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Jeff, to hand it over to Judy.
Thanks again for everything, Tara. Okay, first we're going to hear from Judith Tackett, who's our Executive Director of Metro's Homelessness Impact Division. I've learned a great deal from Judy and Troy Jenkins, who works with her also. And so Judy, thank you so much for being here. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen. Continue here and just make sure that you can actually see this and follow my PowerPoint here. If somebody can let me know, it should be showing right now. So basically what I'm going to start first with telling you a little bit about who we are. The Metro Homeless Impact Division is a division of Metro Social Services. We are doing mostly planning and coordination. As part of that, we manage data on behalf of the community. It's called a Homeless Management Information System. We are really focused on building that system with our community partners, and you're going to hear from 3 of our great partners in the community on what we do to build a whole system with the individual program providers. And we also manage a coordinated entry process that's going away from a first come, first serve, first come, first serve service model, and really looks at people's needs and the level of the needs and engagement that they need to be successful. We are increasingly right now building a pilot and a demonstration project around landlord engagement. And overall, we have 11 staff, 2 outreach specialists, street outreach specialists. Troy Jenkins is one of our outreach specialists. He's going to help me with Q&A later on if there's any questions you have that he can take. One of the things that I want to stress when we look at homelessness, our community, you, me, everybody really knows what ends homelessness. Homelessness is a housing status. So housing ends homelessness. So what we need to actually create an effective and efficient system is affordable housing, appropriate services that help people address some of the underlying issues, some of the needs that they have while they're in housing, before they're in housing, get them help with access to housing, and then also link them with adequate incomes. And when we talk about adequate incomes, I also want to really highlight that oftentimes system failures like healthcare, people don't have the right access to healthcare. There are other issues around somebody may have a divorce, may be sick, cannot pay the bills, loses their job, cannot pay the bills. A lot of that, and people end up in homelessness through system failures because we do not have these safety nets. And then the homeless system is kind of asked to help end homelessness. But we really need to link and create these linkages to build a really robust safety net that helps and focuses around housing. How can people remain in housing, be successful in housing, have the adequate income so that they are not gonna end up on the streets or in shelters? And that's kind of the work that we're trying to do. I want to go into what kind of what homelessness in Nashville looks like. So there is annually a point in time count. This is a one night count. Last year it was on January 23rd, 2020. And that's the most recent number we have. And we counted in the emergency shelters and on the streets 2,016 people total. And one of the things that I also want to point out, this is the most narrow definition of homelessness, people who are in emergency shelter beds, living on the streets, in encampments, and in places not meant for human habitation. So this is really a snapshot. But we, prior to COVID, we've done really steadily with, it's been around that number, a little bit up and down, but overall over 4 years, we have decreased homelessness based on that narrow definition. We have a lot of work to do, and then I want to really go into what it looks like also. Oh, I can advance right now. There we go. I need to advance it this way. What homelessness looks like during COVID. So what happened in spring especially, and we saw that starting in March, that when really the COVID-19 crisis hit our city, service models had to be adjusted and changed. Shelters needed to provide people who stayed there some safety and security and social distancing options. Metro opened shelters at the fairgrounds and the municipal auditorium. So that helped with that social distancing implementation. And I also want to point out that prior to COVID, when we looked at that point in time count, An estimated about a third of the homeless population was on the streets or in encampments, and 2/3 in shelters. And I would estimate, and we are really pushing right now to get better numbers. We're really looking and working together with outreach groups and actually have a meeting tomorrow to see how we can get a better census. But my estimate right now, based on observation and talking to our partners, is that about 50% are in encampments and on the streets. So when you observe and see more homelessness, yes, that is absolutely the case. Homelessness has also become visible because service models changed and affected libraries. Libraries are not as places for people to gather and stick around and use the computers as much as they were prior to COVID. Waiting rooms, even at a doctor's appointment or at service appointments, they're limited. So not as many people are just in waiting rooms or indoors. And so that kind of really makes homelessness more visible. And what are we doing as a community? Through COVID, we have received an increase in one-time funding to address homelessness. We, as a city, as a community, received $10 million in emergency solution grants. This was announced in late spring, and over the summer, we, as a community with providers, have had multiple coordination meetings, and they're still going on to really look at how do we want to spend these 10 million over the next 2 years to address homelessness. And there's a lot of details with emergency solution grants, about much of how this works is the federal dollar assigns a community $10 million in emergency solution grants. MDHA, the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency, is the agency that administers the overall grant funds. They are granted out to local nonprofits who built the programs around it. So majority of these $10 million went to street outreach, about $800,000, and also to rapid rehousing. That's permanent housing with support services. Rapid rehousing provides rent assistance for up to 1 year, plus support services to really help individuals and provide case management and whatever the person needs to become successful in housing and remain in housing long term. So that is how most of that money is being spent right now. And what the goal is for these grants and what the community and providers have come up with is to house around 400 people who experience literal homeless by December 2021. How is that done? By building the relationships with the people where they are. So in the encampments, on the streets, in the shelter, engage with people, provide a community-wide assessment that really looks at, that's where we see how we prioritize people based on their needs, and provide the housing assistance, help them with filling out and housing searches, filling out the application forms, linking people with landlords, and then continued service support throughout this entire process and while people are in housing. So the dollars really started flowing to nonprofits in October. And since then, we have kept data. We're really now coming out with some data reports for this particular program. And I'm really stressing this is for this rapid rehousing. It's permanent housing that provides rent assistance and support services for people experiencing literal homelessness. Right now, 304 people have been enrolled, and what that means, they're linked to a nonprofit who works with them intensely on housing search and support services. And of those, 208 have moved into permanent housing already. So that is a huge increase in pushing for housing, and we're doing really, really well. In comparison, we also have a technical assistance provider consultant from the federal government to help us think through these things, to understand exactly how we can use the dollars to help us set up these programs and facilitate some of the meetings. And then our provider has reported to us when they report back to HUD, they hear from peer cities, and we in Nashville are doing really, really well with implementing these programs. There is always a startup. It takes some time to get all this going, and so far we're in good shape. One of the key issues I want to mention is the landlord engagement. We are at the same time really want to focus and enhance what does landlord engagement and coordinated efforts around that look like, so that we can work together and identify and work with landlords, incentivize maybe when they work with us to assist and assist us in housing people, and really offer affordable housing that also becomes sustainable for people so that they can remain in housing. When here it says bi-weekly coordination calls, we have that with nonprofits that have actively are looking and engaging landlords. We do not want to overwhelm one landlord with 8 different agencies calling them. So we have coordination calls around that, and dedicated staff working with property owners to support them as well. Lastly, how can you help? So one of the things I want to always recommend, volunteer at a local nonprofit organization. And I'm saying here in health departments, what I really mean health programs, and especially during COVID, they need all their support, and that will benefit the entire community. Also, start a donation drive within your community, and I would recommend you focus on supporting the organizations that actually house people. When it's homelessness, it's about housing. And so look at if people participate actively in our systems building, if those organizations are a partner in that. We have a website for the homeless management information system. That's a good indication if an organization is entering and sharing data. It's very anonymous for individuals and protected data, but we can announce publicly who's participating, and really that's a good indication. And I would please support these organizations. And then also create your volunteer team. If you want to do something hands-on, create a volunteer team, but link with some of the street outreach providers. And you're going to hear from 3 great outreach providers in a minute. So link with one of them, volunteer with them, and then work with them. One of the things and key things to always know people's names. People are your neighbors, whether they're housed or not housed. So the more we get to know people, the more we get to understand situations, the more we know how to help. And the more people will also share where they need help. And I also included on the slide here that you can follow the local homeless planning council. It's a governing board. We have monthly meetings, and later on here, actually from Paula Foster, who's with Open Table Nashville, also chairs the Homelessness Planning Council. So feel free to follow us on there as well. Here are a few resources. You can always email me, and I can link you to those resources as well. And with that, I really want to stop sharing my slides. And while I'm doing so, I would like to pitch you to Colleen Lampa with People Loving Nashville.
Hi, I'm Colleen. I work with an organization called People Loving Nashville. We've been around mainly downtown for the last 12 years, and really just started just because we saw a need and we saw hungry people, and so we brought food to the hungry people, and it has grown from there. we are now growing into a lot more than just so we started with just a meal on Mondays, and we've grown from that into a bunch of different areas, going to people that are housed and in motels, in hotels, and as well as camps. So my main thing that I was going to talk about is just the Donelson camps that we've come across in the last year. We started going after the tornado, and just kind of noticed that there was one, because of a tornado ripping through a city, there was less resources for people, and there was a group that kind of shared where they're going, which camps they're going to and stuff like that. So we noticed nobody was going to the Donelson camps, and we picked those up, and we thought that it'd be nice to just kind of like go around and, you know, go through the camps that others have told us about, but also kind of just drive around and find people that are sleeping in tents and stuff like that. And so throughout the last 8 months, 9 months, I don't know, we have found a few main camps that we go to every week. And in our years of serving the homeless downtown, we have realized that bringing food to people is just it's easy. Everyone loves food. So we started bringing just food boxes, and kind of just engaging them and asking them what kind of foods they need, what kind of foods they don't have, and stuff like that. And so I think we started with maybe 12 different camps around the Donelson Hermitage area. A lot of them have been evicted from where they are because they're behind businesses that don't want them there, or they're just around people who don't want to be around, so they've moved and we can't find them anymore, stuff like that. But what we've noticed is that the issue more in Donelson is that, at least with the people that we've seen, nobody's checked on them in 5-6 years, or that's what they tell us. So we've been to a camp that has lived at their spot, most of them. Some of them are in and out, but most of the people, they're like real set up, and they've been there for 5 years, and they said, we haven't seen anybody out here in 3 years. And it's not really hidden too much. They said it's short on outreach workers out there, I guess. And so we definitely have been going to them and kind of engaging them more. 3 of them have gotten in housing. We haven't put them in housing, but we've helped them with some of their paperwork and stuff like that. And just realizing that because they're a little bit further away from downtown, there's not as much help. And so we want to try to help get people out there. And we know that a lot of the outreach workers are kind of limited to a certain area downtown. So we've kind of gotten creative. We've gotten some people bus passes to get into the downtown area and talk to people. We've noticed that there's a lot of people out there that they just get frustrated because their house is out 20 minutes away from downtown. They don't have a car. They need to get a bus pass. They get a bus pass, and then they need to come back the next week. Just kind of stuff like that. So we've been trying to bridge that, helping them print out things or meeting them and getting emails sent or phone calls made and stuff like that. But yeah, so our a lot of the people that we see, they range from like young 20s to older 60s, 70s. So there's not really one demographic that we've seen. We've engaged with most of them, and mainly there's some of them that don't really even ask about getting into housing. But their main needs are food, and they don't. We've kind of searched and looked around and asked if they know of other resources around, and from their knowledge and from what I haven't done a ton of research, but there's really not a ton. There's some churches around that do food boxes and like the emergency food boxes with Second Harvest. But other than that, nobody really knows of any other help. So we've tried to step in there. We've brought neighborhood health down to some camps that we're just going about their lives with these big infections on their arms and stuff like that. And so that's the big issue of what we're seeing, is that there's just not really anybody checking on them. And if they are, they don't think there are. And so, yeah, so our role really in that is just coming alongside of them and trying to be a friend. And if we have the resources, or we have an idea of somebody we can send to them to get them off the street, or get them the health care they need, or get them whatever it is, in touch with their family members so they can go home. That's where we've been lately. We haven't done a ton more. We've really just been engaging with the relationships that we have, and trying to find some more camps that may have popped up since we did our big search back in the beginning of COVID, and just seeing what else we can do. Mainly why I wanted to be here on this call is to hear what else is out there, and if there's other people we can send them to, or resources, or anybody that wants to help. So yeah, the how you can help, I agree with what Judy said earlier. Is like, smile, be friends with people, recognize that the people that are asking for help on the side of the road are humans, and they need help. Whether you give them something or not, it's hard to do that. And just being kind to people, knowing their names, it's huge. We go in to these camps and we say hi to 20 different people by name, and they are shocked every time we remember their names, and just small details even about them. So practically, that is the biggest thing of how you can help. But also with our organization, it's People Loving Nashville. I see somebody wrote that on the comments. We have volunteer opportunities. We are expanding, and so any kind of donations, clothing, propane is huge, especially for people that are living in tents. We can't find it really anywhere, so we've been getting the huge propane tanks and trying to help refill them with that, and it takes a long time. So if you see any propane tanks, we could use those. Monetarily, we try not to use a ton of money. We get most of our stuff from Second Harvest, and it's been amazing that we fill the food boxes with, and stuff like that. So I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, you can send me a message, but yeah, that's about all we have. I don't remember who I'm pitching it to. Does anybody know? Ashley?
I think it's me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I may have some internet issues. I'm sorry. It's been great. But my name is Ashley Blum, and I'm the director of the Homeless Outreach Program with Park Center. And we, on the Homeless Outreach team, has been around since 2006. as an outreach team, and we provide an array of services in our team. I have 15 coworkers that are working alongside me now, which is really awesome because we've grown quite a bit over the years. We're made up of quite a few grants that we get from SAMHSA and the state, and then we also have a Metro grant under the Homeless Impact Division that we get to do SOAR with every day. So that's really great. So I was going to start with just kind of going through our different programs and explaining to you what like SOAR and the street outreach models that we use. So I'm not sure if any of y'all are familiar with SOAR, but SOAR is, it stands for SSI, SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery. And it's a fast track model that we use to assist people with getting disability benefits that are experiencing homelessness and mental health concerns. So like Judy said, oftentimes people that are unhoused are experiencing mental health crises, substance abuse, physical health crises that have limited them from being able to work and being able to stay in safe and sustainable housing. So SOAR is a model that we use to help people get on disability benefits through Social Security. We are oftentimes seeing people that do not have the resources. So like Colleen was saying, a lot of people are further outside of Nashville, so they are not getting the mental health treatment that they need to be able to help them sustain work and sustain housing. We all know that being mentally well is kind of what helps us get through work some days and most days. So if you're not mentally well, then you're more than likely not going to be able to work and have that money to be able to pay your bills. So that's one of the programs that we utilize, and it's a really successful program. We can get people disability anywhere between 45 and 60 days. I say, kind of giggle about that because the numbers are going up because things are taking a little bit longer right now during COVID, but I think everyone kind of knows that. So right now we're at around 75 to 80 days to get someone on disability benefits. We also have a street outreach program where we have housing navigators, and we have outreach workers that connect people to simply just mental health treatment or substance abuse treatment, employment, housing. So we have housing navigators, but we also have street outreach workers that connect people to housing navigators. So we have a continuation of services on our team, which is nice. We also partner with Neighborhood Health. I know Colleen brought up Neighborhood Health. We have a partnership with Neighborhood Health, who has a street medicine program. For 6 years, we had a street medicine program with Vanderbilt. So we've been doing street medicine for a long time. Often we see people that, like Colleen said, have like wounds, or they haven't been taking their medications, or they have high blood pressure and they haven't been able to get to the clinic because they chose to go to get the food at the shelter when they, and they missed their appointment to get their medications. There's just so many things that people have to do to survive out there. So they have to make choices, and then they miss their appointment, and then they miss their medications, and then they're unwell. So it's a cycle that often gets people down quite a bit that we run into. So we do partner with them, which is really great because we can take the treatment to them, and then they're able to get the care that they need. And so that's something that we've done for 6 years now, and we're lucky to have Neighborhood Health doing it for us. So it's super awesome. So the main thing that we do is really try to engage with people so that they trust us. We show up, we bring them supplies so that they are able to have their basic, so that they can survive out there in the weather, help them stay safe. And we engage with them and build rapport with them and really just care about them and help them meet their basic needs while connecting them to the services that they need to get off the streets. So yeah, I see that we have 10 minutes left. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, a lot of people said some of the things that you all can do. We always, take donations. But I like to say send donations to other people like Open Table and People Loving Nashville, because we have tons of grant dollars right now. We're really, really lucky. Judy was talking about the ESGCV grant. We've gotten a lot of funding over the last few years, and why we've been able to grow. So I often send people who want to give monetarily, or even to like supplies and stuff. I send them to some of our pals in the other organizations, because we're really lucky right now to be able to provide a lot of stuff for our folks. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Paula, because I want Paula to have some time to chat, but I'm available for any questions as well, like Colleen said. So thank you all for having me, and I appreciate all that you all are doing in your community.
Gee, Ash, thank you. Thank you for all that. Thanks for sending people our way, and thanks for all that you do. I've known Ashley for a long time, and wow, it has been a journey, hasn't it? So my name is Paula Foster. I am the fairly new executive director of Open Table Nashville. We've been an organization started with a group of ragtag ministers and outreach workers who just wanted to make sure that people were taken care of. They saw a need and they wanted to meet it. And so we've been doing it ever since. I am fortunate to have been chosen to be the new executive director. I've known Open Table for a very long time, and I've done donation drives and all sorts of things to support them. I've worked in some of the warming shelters that they've had in the past. And when the opportunity presented itself, I was doing, backflips. Well, not literally, I couldn't do that anymore, but anyway, it was great. And so I'm here, and I am still learning, even though I've been in Nashville for a long time, and I've met so many of you, and I've worked with so many of you, but I'm still learning more and more about the resources that are there. Open Table, one of the things that I think makes us unique, and I know People Loving Nashville and Shower the People, and so many other organizations that are doing the same kinds of things. We walk the journey with our folks. We call them friends. They're not clients. They're not patients. They're not constituents. They're not consumers. They're our friends. We build relationships with them. And sometimes it takes a long time to build trust with folks. There are folks who've been living out on the streets for a long time who, you say, we can get you a home if you want one, and they don't believe us because the systems that they've been interacting with for so long let them down left and right. So it takes a long time sometimes just to build that trust, to get them to a place where they let us help them sometimes. So that's what we do. We walk the journey with our folks, with our friends. We try to provide them with the things that they need to be sustained while we are trying to get them to a place that they are ready to get into housing. Housing first and rapid rehousing they're great models. Sometimes folks are not ready for that, but we have to keep trying to get them to that point. Ashley will tell you that folks who are dealing with serious and persistent mental illnesses are incredibly vulnerable, and it takes a long time to get folks where they need to be in order to get them into housing. But we also know, as Judy said this at the very beginning, the answer to homelessness is housing. It's affordable housing. And the mayor has created a task force for affordable housing here in Nashville. We asked, after that task force was formed, if a person could be added that had more expertise in homelessness. And the mayor agreed that that was a good idea. So we have someone on that task force now that can represent the interests of folks who are truly vulnerable, because affordable housing is great for folks who are working. But if you don't have a job and you haven't sustained housing in a long time, you need more than just an apartment. You need some support to get into that apartment, and you need some other things that are going to help you sustain those things. We provide folks with welcome home kits when we're able to get them into housing, because you can have a house, but if you have nothing to go in it, it's not a whole lot better than when you were living in the street. You just have 4 walls. So we do things like we give mattresses, we give pots and pans, we give shower curtains, and the hooks to hang the shower curtains. There's lots of little things that you can do. So all of those kinds of things are things that you can do with any of the organizations that have talked here tonight to be able to help our folks. I was listening also tonight to something. There's a new court here in Nashville that is trying to deal with folks experiencing homelessness who are arrested or given summonses. And that court is trying specifically to avoid criminalizing homelessness, which I think is incredibly important. I know you're going to hear from some police officers in a little bit, but you can't arrest your way out of homelessness. And it is incredibly important for us to figure out ways to get to the root causes of homelessness. You know, it's economy, it's poverty, it's mental illness, it's substance abuse, it's all of those things. And it is a variety of things. And the people that you have heard from tonight do the lion's share of working with folks to get them in a place that they can accept that help. We have a gentleman that has been with Open Table for a very long time. I'm going to end with the stories and pitch it on to back to where we need to go. We have a gentleman he's been housed for a very long time. And in fact, he is on our board of directors. He works and he's been doing great. He's been living in a house that his mother lived in for many, many, many years. But the house is being sold and he's going to have to move. He's got about a month to find a new place to live. He can afford fair market rent. Unfortunately, about 30 years ago, he was incarcerated and he ended up on the sex abuse registry. We can't find him a place to live. This is a guy who's been working really hard. He's been very productive for many years. And now he's in danger of becoming homeless again because the housing is not there. We don't have enough. If we had more housing, we could put more people into housing and we could give them the support that they need in order to be able to sustain that. There's a lot more that I could say. You know, when it comes to Open Table, we exist solely on donations, financial donations, supplies. You know, Ashley will tell you, you know, they're lucky they have some federal funding. We don't take federal funding. We don't take governmental funding. We are supported by many of the local churches, particularly United Methodist churches, but we're always looking to expand those things. And we're not using volunteers in the same way that we have in the past, but we will get back to that. And we will be more than happy to have any of you come and volunteer and help us find folks and help us get them into shelters. Help us every time that the temperature drops below 28 degrees and Metro opens their homeless overflow shelter. We have a team of folks that go out at night and find folks to try to get them in shelter. So far this winter alone, we have taken almost 450 people to the overflow shelter. So that's a lot of folks who need it. Thank you for letting us be here tonight and listening to things. It's very difficult sometimes when you have folks that are, you know, doing things in your neighborhoods that are disturbing. But I think what Ashley and Colleen and Judy, what we've said, is get to know who they are, because when you know them and you know your neighbors, there's things that you can do to help. Thanks. And I think I'm pitching it back to Jeff right now.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Colleen. We're now going to pivot to Sergeant White to give his perspective. Like, as I said, our police department deals with everything in the community, and to give his perspective. And then Sergeant White, you can go ahead and pivot the conversation to talk about panhandling.
Excellent. Thank you. My name is Jeff White. I'm the Community Affairs Coordinator for Hermitage Precinct, and I will put my information along with my email and my phone number in the text, in the chat. And I just want to thank Mix Tackett and Troy for being here tonight, because they really are the experts. That's who the police department, especially myself, lean on all the time. If I have any issues, questions, concerns, I usually reach out to Mr. Jenkins and just get his knowledge, because they have so much more knowledge than we do, especially with all of the stuff that we have going on. Then also like to thank Councilman Syracuse and State Representative Jernigan for hosting and getting this meeting, getting all 108, 101 of us together to talk about this. So as I divide this up, I'll talk first about homelessness. Is not a police issue in my mind, and the department's issue. It's more of a social issue, kind of along the same lines as mental illness and drug dependencies. But sometimes the result of the actions of the people that need our help or experience these issues show up in criminal activity where we have to deal with them. So hopefully, and I'll mention this right before I get to the panhandling too, hopefully we have 5 different kind of operational goals with the police department that include do not harm, compassionate policing, equality and inclusion, mission of compassion, and knowledge of needs. And kind of briefly going through these real quick, and then just going over them briefly right before we talked about Panhandling is, we got to work on the principle to conduct and promote kindness and compassion in all situations, whether it's for the victims, also for the suspects, for the family members. We got to really go with that. And with that, the compassionate policing of emphasizing our empathy for the behavior whenever we interact with the community to promote goodwill amongst all of us and kind of bring that cohesiveness together, which goes right into the equality and inclusion about fairness and respectful treatment for all. And not only for the victims, but also for the people having these challenges, make sure they have the feeling of respect, acceptance, and they value how they're treated and the way they treat other people also. And then engaging in kind of going out and having this mission of compassion with going to events, partnerships for the goodwill and also the knowledge they need. And that's one of the big things that we reach on our other partners with, to identify those needs of individuals or groups, determine what best we can do to help them. So going on with the homelessness, as you all know, it's all over Hermitage Precinct. It's all over Nashville. We've heard all these great resources out there. And we receive most of our interaction with homeless when we do checks either on their health or their well-being. And like I said, sometimes we ask, or I do specifically in Hermitage Precinct, Donelson, Old Hickory, ask Metro Social Services and the Homeless Impact Division to follow up with individuals as a result of my interactions or other officers' interactions. And unfortunately, sometimes in extreme conditions, we also have to call out mobile crisis to have them talk for something that's an immediate need right then and there, for have them evaluate and talk to see if we can get them the immediate help, especially if they're experiencing some type of medical issue at that time. As I talked before about the Homeless Outreach Division and their team, they'll come out, I'll reach out to them, they come out, help evaluate kind of what's going on without us there, so we don't have that presence. They regularly find campsites, talk to people who are homeless. I've also asked them to do panhandling and try to connect them with the services that they need that the police department can't provide, either whether it's healthcare or housing. And as our last speaker just spoke, whenever the overnight temperature is 28 degrees or lower in Nashville, we go into the city goes into the cold weather response, which is occurring tonight. And the police department side of that, we go out and we try to conduct patrols looking for those in the elements who need shelter. And as of for this wintertime so far, we've went out and encountered 101 individuals, and 91 of them have accepted our assistance to take them to some type of sheltering place out of the weather for that night. Another time we encounter homelessness is during calls for service, either to check the welfare or trespassing complaints that we get from citizens. During the calls for service, we check to make sure they're okay, see if there's anything they need, see if mobile crisis maybe needs to come out, or there's some type of specific thing that we can give them right now. And as somebody mentioned in here earlier, we also try to give them a resource guide to where to turn in Nashville. And it is a small book, but it has probably 100 to 1,000 of resources in there from any type of resources you could need. That's another good tool that we can kind of use to hand that out, where if they need it later on, or if they see us, that they'll come back to us and ask us for that help if they see something in there. Also, another issue is when property owners have trespassers on their property and they want assistance in having them leave or go on. And my main thing is on that, I'll give them their information to the Metro Social Services so they can call Miss Tackett to try to get them help before we do have to, unfortunately, if we have to, go to the criminal side where they are trespassers. But with that, get them with the services that they need and try to get them either that temporary housing or that other housing they have, along with the other services they need. And sometimes, as a final step, unfortunately, we have to assist owners on their own property to prosecute the individuals for criminal trespassing, which is the very, very last thing we want to do, because as I said before, we know that's not the issue, and it's not really solving the problem for the individual to get help that he needs. And kind of the best way to report, I'd say probably one of the only ways, Ms. Tackett, but also another great way to just report homelessness or to see if somebody needs help is through hubnashville.gov. You can also call 311, or their line if you're outside Davidson County is 615-862-5000. and that's Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But you can always go to hubnashville.gov anytime and just put in a request there, and that'll get sent out to the metro agency that it needs to be sent out to. So from that side of the homelessness, we'll kind of jump over to the panhandling side, which is two completely separate kind of entities that are kind of combined together as everything's combined together. But with panhandling, we go back and we try to hopefully achieve what we can through the police department by using 5 of our several operational goals we have, which is do not harm, compassionate policing, equality and inclusion, knowledge of need, and the mission of compassion. It is also an issue that we have panhandling is also an issue we have all over Nashville and Hermitage Precinct, especially along our major thoroughfares. The department's main goal or role in all that we do is to protect people's individual constitutional rights. We receive most of our complaints on panhandlers who are aggressively panhandling, which is not a constitutional right for them to have. So sometimes, as I said before, I've asked Metro Social Services and the Homeless Impact Division to follow up with individuals who are panhandling, because I believe sometimes there's that connection between them panhandling and homelessness, and that's just another good way to get the services out to them through the experts, through the Homeless Impact Division and their outreach workers. The department also provides some clothing and food to individuals that need assistance, along with the resource guides, where to turn in Nashville, to have them that extra resource or resources that if they need something, they know where to turn or where they can go to. During a calls for service that we usually get on panhandlers, as I said, is aggressive panhandling. And it's if they violated one of the law or ordinance that we have on file, which I'll mention a few in just a moment. And to that, what we need from everybody, especially the aggressive panhandlers, is we need the assistance from the victims and the citizens in prosecuting that violation. And the greatest help from the community with that, especially the aggressive panhandling, is to follow up on the prosecution. And that's not to have them incarcerated or anything. That's hopefully to get them the help that they need in the path where we can get them back to healthy life, healthy well-being, where they're not out there being aggressive. The two, one statute and one ordinance that Metro has and the state has is aggressive panhandling. The Metro ordinance is 11-12-090, talks about aggressive panhandling, and the state has 39-17-313 aggressive panhandling. And in the Metro ordinance, it basically defines what panhandling is. It defines what actions is aggressive panhandling. And then after that, it gives a few places where panhandling is not allowed any time of day. And then in the state statute, it kind of goes over basically what aggressive panhandling is that can be charged under the state statute with that, going along with those two. And those are kind of two things we can use to work together to see where we're going. There's a few others that are kind of along the same line, which is soliciting rides, obstructing highways, and also standing along roadways. But the two aggressive panhandling ordinance specifically talk about kind of each one of those two in there. Also of note, in the aggressive panhandling Metro ordinance, it says panhandling shall not include any act passively standing or sitting, performing music, or singing with a sign or other indication that a donation is being sought, but without any vocal request other than response to an inquiry by another person. So specifically in the ordinance, it says what panhandling is not. So which is kind of good to get around, especially when it's on that slippery slope of kind of what's illegal and what's panhandling and what's not panhandling and what's aggressive panhandling in that. Also, one last thing I would like to mention in this is we're always hiring. So here's my little pitch to everybody. The police department's always hiring. And if you have these 5 qualities, it's what we're looking for: integrity, empathy, problem solver, good communications, and a critical thinker. Please come and join us, or have somebody you know join us, because we'll train you to do the rest. And you can do that by going to joinmnpd.com. Again, that's joinmnpd.com. So at this time, I will pass it back on over to Councilman Syracuse.
Really appreciate it always, Sergeant White. You're fantastic. You're always at all our community meetings. I can't thank you enough for everything you do. Our state representative, Darren Jernigan, is with us and wanted to get his perspective and input on panhandling and anything else he'd like to share.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. When you spoke to me about panhandling, and I would say about 3 years ago is when I started to get the uptick on calls, panhandling, and I think Sergeant White mentioned about the main thoroughfares. So there are 5 state roads that run through Donelson, Hermitage, Old Hickory, and it's Briley Parkway, Donelson Pike, Lebanon Pike, Old Hickory Boulevard, and Central Pike. And when I started getting the phone calls, it was about the aggressive panhandling, and I want to make it very clear about the difference between, say, a contributor who's got an organization that they go out and there's a mission to get someone off the street, and someone for, I don't know, I don't like a better word is a scammer, but I'll follow up to back up what I'm saying when I use that term. So when the call started to increase, started to look into where the locations were, and there was one in particular that was the Old Hickory Boulevard and coming off the interstate and merges with Old Hickory Boulevard and State Route 45 and the interstate ramp. And there's a nexus there that staying on the corner, standing right in the middle, median, and I started to get there's a couple of near accidents. And we're looking at an area where 75,000 cars travel a day, in the middle of a median, and then when you hold it up, going out into the road, it would become an issue of safety. And so looked at what we could do, because there are constitutional issues, and what we found is that, and what the legislature passed was there would be no soliciting on state highway medians. And the contributor was involved at the legislature and came down, spoke to the sponsors, and it was they agreed that would be a safety issue as far as the cars that are coming through there. Doesn't mean you couldn't be on the corner across the street or corners of those medians, but you just could not be in the median itself. So this is what we kind of ran into, because another catalyst for this is because I would have someone send me a video of following a panhandler back to their nice Prius and drive off and be back there the next day. But here's the deal. We passed the law, and so I had signs put up according to TCA, and gosh, I don't remember the number now, 59-8, I don't know the last 3 digits. But we put the signs up, to say you can't be in the median. Wasn't the next day, I had folks standing in front of the signs. And so I said, okay, well, we need to enforce this somehow. So I got to it with the police department, and I said, look, we need to enforce this. So they did a three-day reflection into a 3-day, I don't want to say sting, but that's pretty much what it was. Okay, here's the results. This is what I find fascinating. The first day, there were 16 different people there. So now the way the law is written is that you give a warning, and if they come back, then you give a citation. So there were 16 different people there, right? The next day, there were 17 different people than the day before. And I asked the officers, I said, he goes, look, he says, we talked to some people that they took a bus from across town to come over to this location because it was the number 2 spot in the county. And he says, they talked to one person, says, look, I can make $2,000 a week tax-free doing this. That's not the people that were you want to differentiate helping someone like that as a contributor who's trying to get off the street and try to get that, and the people that are scamming for it. And that was an issue. So, okay. So now I'm at a point to where enforcement's not working. And even they gave one person 3 days a ticket, came back. And the officer was very honest with me. He was like, he's probably not going to get prosecuted, but he's not going to fool it. I said, okay. So then my next step, and that's where I'm at with TDOT now, is to say, okay, look, here is a location. Here is the problem. Could you please figure out a way to enforce this? Whether it's engineering that you put a barrier between the person in the median and the road, or you put some kind of better word, I guess, some kind of, I don't know, a fence, whatever it is, just so I'm not impeding cars that are going 45, 55 miles an hour down the road. And then they stop at a light, at a yellow light, and they're still going through, and a person's going out to aggressively in the street and get the money. So that's what I'm that's what I'm facing of trying to, but it's not just the location I mentioned. It's Riley Parkway, Lebanon Pike. It's Donelson Pike, the ramp at I-40. It's during the median, state highway median at Lebanon Pike, and Old Hickory Boulevard, which is the 7th most traveled intersection in the state. And so, yeah, it can be very lucrative for some people, and it's the only way. So I've tried legislation, I've tried police enforcement, and now we're going to try some form of getting TDOT engineers to look at that, what's safe for people that are not only trying to get the money, but the driver who's there for everyone. So that's kind of what I have been doing for the past 3 years on panhandling, and it's not an easy issue to get around and get a solution to.
Well, thanks so much, State Representative Jernigan. You do an awesome job for us. I tell people all the time how much I have learned from you, and can't thank you enough for what you do for us. Wanted to give a couple shout outs. I know that Tom Wills with the contributor is here. Thanks for joining us. I know that Stephen Young with Home Street Home Ministries is here with us. And I know that one of our great community members, Lillian Weist, is here, who is very involved with the homeless community. And if you scroll through the chat, you will see a lot of great questions. You'll see a lot of great resources here locally and all that. And so I encourage you to do that. What we're going to do now is, I know a lot of folks have submitted questions, and we're at about 10 after 8 here. And so I think we're making great time, but I wanted to take just a little bit of time to try to answer some of the questions that you all have submitted. And if you don't have your question answered tonight, if we don't necessarily get to it, send it to me tomorrow, and I will connect you with the right person to get the answer to it. And also at the end, after this Q&A, Tara is going to open up another poll so that you can kind of rate this meeting, and also let us know if you'd be interested in a follow-up, because like I said in the beginning, there is a lot of resources out there and a lot of people doing great things to help our unhoused neighbors. And if you would like to do this again, I would absolutely be willing to host this again. And of course, again, thanks to Tara and her team. Couldn't do this without her. So let's take one that I actually dealt with today. One of the questions is, are there resources to help clear campsites that are abandoned? And I believe the answer really is no. I will tell you that a neighbor in Bluefields actually reached out to me today, and he sent me pictures and said, I noticed that there was left over from a camp behind my house in the woods basically kind of in the behind the business. His property butts up to a business, and so that's kind of where folks were. And I don't think that there really is. Does anybody on our panel want to take that one? And any input on that?
This is Judy. So it is something that is high on Troy's and my radar, but I have to be super honest. Housing is the #1 priority, and right now, when we're called to work on the housing piece, that is what we have to do right now because the opportunity is now. But at the same time, I'm in touch with different departments, public works, water services, parks, and different departments to figure out how we can actually prioritize and answer some of these questions, because nobody has that designated, and also police department, nobody has this designated budget for it. So no, but I feel we need a coordinated effort around that. I also shout out to the nonprofit and volunteers that have really come through with some encampments to just go in and do cleanups and make these efforts happen. But we really need to, I believe, have kind of a coordinated effort, because a lot of times people don't know where to go with the trash, what to do with it. We have during COVID set up increased, public works really has stepped up and increased dumpster setups at different locations, but it's not enough right now. So
Hey, Jeff, this is
Yeah.
Lillian. My understanding is that there was some federal money given to certain areas, and I need to confirm that, to take care of the trash. We have several people in our ministry, which is Layman Lessons, that will go in and take the trash can liners for them to bag things up. And many of our encampments, as Judith and several of y'all have seen, they will bag it up. Here in Donelson, I personally give out the large heavy duty liners for them to put, and then I go back and pick it up and take it and put it in my trash on the weekends. They are wanting, because if they can get rid of the trash, that eliminates the dogs tearing the bags, the raccoons, the mice. We take the items into the camps, but we have nothing set up to take it out. And I think it's more on us ministries, because we take the boxes, the food, the styrofoam mess. We empty trash every week for Metro to pick up. So us ministries are just as guilty, because we take it in knowing they have no way to get rid of it. Our ministry has offered to take some of that money and pay, say like Chris Carter, someone who has a trash hauling service. For whatever reason, he cannot get his dumpster in there. He's willing to set a dumpster in and let them fill it up. But Jeff, correct me, Metro won't let us set it on soft ground. It sinks in.
That's
So the
true.
homeless that's right. The homeless want to get the trash out. It's very unhealthy for them. So our ministry has talked about that a lot. We just can't get a dumpster in there big enough to clean it out. It's going to take some cleanup crews, some young, strong men to get in there and help us. But we'd be the first to jump on something like that, Jeff.
That's great to hear. Thanks so much, Lillian. And thank you, Judy, for that. So that is one way where we could absolutely help support Judy and her efforts and whatnot. I couldn't agree with Judy more that her efforts should be going to housing more so than cleanup. And if there is a cleanup area, an area that needs cleanup, please let me know. And I'll be happy to work on getting the resources and folks together so that that's not a phone call that Judy needs to deal with, and we can manage that. So I appreciate that question.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I have made this offer through Chip Hermity, Chip Donelson, several different times. Home Street Home will provide everything needed to do the cleanup. We've got vehicles, we've got pickup trucks that we can fill up, put the bags in. We'll take them, dispose of them. Manpower is the one thing we've needed. And several times when people have gone on the HIP sites complaining about the trash, I've gone on there and made the offer. You tell me a Saturday you would be willing to come out, give us a couple of hours. We'll go and clean these things up. I'll provide the bags, the rakes, the gloves, everything to help get them cleaned up. We just need the manpower. We could do this once every other month and clean a lot of this stuff up, and we would be willing to do it. My people would be there, and I can promise you, Jeff, the homeless people would assist. The ones that are out there, they would help do the cleanup. They just don't, like Lillian said, they don't have the ability themselves. But it's funny when we have so many people that want to get out there and complain and slam, but then when you offer them an alternative to clean it up and do something about it, they don't want to participate in that. So if you or anyone else in the neighborhood or the communities can get us some people that would be willing to go out, let's set a Saturday up. Let's do it every other month. Let's do it once a month. Like I said, we'll be happy to provide everything needed, including the vehicles to tote it off with. All we need is some bodies to help us out.
That's fantastic, Stephen. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely. I would be more than happy to help coordinate getting bodies to help. I remember when I did the cleanup and supply drop at the camp about a year and a half or 2 years ago, the folks that lived there did indeed pitch right in. And we had so many bags that I was able to get Public Works to come clean it up. So absolutely. So folks, you've heard from two folks who are directly engaged in this. And so if you see something like this that needs to be cleaned up, let me know. And we have the resources right here to do it. So thank you, Lily and Stephen.
Hey Jeff, this is Paula. I can tell you that Open Table gets a lot of offers for volunteer groups and things to do things. We haven't been able to utilize those as much during COVID, but Steve, then we'll put out a call for some volunteers to help do some of those things, and I will get in touch with you and let you know what kind of volunteers we can recruit through Open Table.
That would be awesome.
Hey Jeff,
that would be awesome.
Any of us ministries will offer. We go out every Saturday morning from 8 to 11. So we would invite any of the public who wants to get more involved to join Steve. I'm not sure if Heather's on here or not. I know Tiffany is, but you're welcome to go out with us just to get more educated with it. And we don't advise people to go to the camps by themselves until these camps have been vetted, because you don't know who might be there. And I know Louis vets all of our camps before we ever start going to them. And we protect the ministry, just like Steve is doing. There is a method to our madness, as we call it. And I just invite anybody to join us. Steve goes out pretty much each week too, don't you, Steve?
Yes.
And so we go out every single Saturday morning. I've done this for 3 years. Every Saturday, I probably missed 5 times. I wake up on Wednesday and can't wait to go out on Saturday. So I invite any of you to join me. Just my number's posted in this thread. And Holly's down here with us. Her kid calls me every Friday night and says, hey, can you give me a ride in the morning? 17-year-old kid going out with me every Saturday. So it's really the hardest ministry I've ever done, but by far the very most rewarding ministry. And if any of you are involved in it, you know what I'm talking about. You will cry a lot, I'll just have to tell you.
Thank you, Lillian. No, I know how hard you've worked here doing this. I know that so as I scroll through the questions, I do know that our speakers and panelists have touched on a lot of the answers to these questions. So I want to try to pick a couple of these that were not as perhaps mentioned specifically. Here's one as far as meeting the needs of our neighbors experiencing homelessness. So could an area program for day services be considered for laundry, meals, and showers? Is that something that has been done, or is that seen as a need in the Donelson area?
So I think Meredith from Shower of the People is on here. Maybe.
Jeff, we have a shower bus that we could bring to Donelson. It's already set up. It has one of our Titans football players, Derek, donated the bus. It's got 4 showers and 2 washer and dryers. And we also have a big drum that we can hook onto the back of the bus, but we'd have to have an experienced driver to navigate that. But we could park it anywhere here in Donelson, and our homeless could come in and take showers, and we could also do their laundry for free.
That's great to know. All right, thank you. Thank you, Lillian.
Jeff, I think one of the greatest things going in Nashville, and most people within the homeless community and most people within the city doing what we do know it as Ken and Carol's. It's over in East Nashville. It's been there a long, long time, and they're open 5 days a week. They serve breakfast, they serve lunch, they have shower facilities, and they have washers and dryers. And while someone's taking a shower, they're doing their laundry for them. If we could find the money somewhere, Jeff, to put those in all different parts of the city, because this one's over in East Nashville, over in the Edgefield area. But if we had those, let's say we had one in Hermitage, one in Donelson, one out in Madison, if we had them spread out where they could be easily gotten to, a lot of your issues within the homeless community would go away, because that is also Ken and Carol's also has become a resource center. I think Open Table uses Ken and Carol's quite a bit for meeting with the homeless. But it's also showing the homeless that the community cares enough to do this. And it's, as was talked about earlier, I'm a little different from everybody else on this panel. I started this ministry after being on the streets for 5 years at 52 years of age, when I lost everything and found myself homeless for the very first time. Not an alcoholic, not a drug addict, just life. Life kicked me square in the butt. So I come from a very different perspective. I come from living it and looking out versus being out and looking in. And I see what has worked and what hasn't worked. And most importantly, in those 5 years, I found out what was being done, but more importantly, what wasn't being done. And we need more things like Ken and Carol's throughout the city. So they will have a place they can go, and they know they'll get fed. They can know they can take a shower. They know they're, most importantly, welcome there. And until we stop looking at homelessness as a problem that needs to be fixed and start looking at it as a condition that needs to be cured, then we're never going to make any progress. And until we're ready to meet them where they are and not expect them to come and meet us where we're at, this problem will remain. And that's from 5 years of living it, experiencing it, and knowing what that side of the track, so to speak, is like. And too many times we expect them to come to us instead of us go to them. We expect them to get to a certain level before they receive the help they need. And it's almost like looking at somebody and going, you got to get good enough to come to church. No, that ain't the way it goes. And I asked this question not too long ago to the governor's office. And I said, are we ready to get our hands dirty? Are we ready to get our knees dirty? Are we ready to get the bottom of our feet dirty? Are we ready to get down where they're at and meet them at their level and not expect them to come up to our level. And I was basically told by the governor's office, Stephen, that'll probably never happen. And my response to that was, well, then we will never come to a position in this city where the homeless situation becomes almost a moot point. It can be cured, but it's going to take everybody meeting them where they're at, not expecting them to come up to a certain level, because that's what's convenient for us. That's what we're comfortable with. It's time to get uncomfortable.
Amen. Stephen, I don't think there's a better way where we could have started to summarize and recap this meeting. And thank you for sharing your experience and your wisdom. I can't thank you for being here. So again, if your questions weren't answered, shoot me an email and I'll connect you with the right person to get you answers. I hope that some of our nonprofit community partners here have also been able to maybe meet others in the immediate area, in the Donelson area, where you can work together. I hope everybody in this meeting has found a nonprofit or whatnot that you can support and found a way to plug in. This definitely takes a village. Any last thoughts from our panelists before I open up, before Tara and team opens up last polls to get your input about how the meeting went and what your thoughts are as far as having a follow-up. So any last thoughts from our panelists before we open up the polls? All right. Well, Tara and team, thank you again for making this happen, the logistics. I can't thank everybody enough for being here. Depending on how the poll goes, if you would like to do a follow-up session, we absolutely will. And thank you to everyone. And have a good rest of your evening and a weekend.
Jeff, if I could say one thing.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts or ideas or feelings you think I should know about, especially homelessness and panhandling at the state level? I want to give you my cell phone number. It's 615-351-1685. And I'm going to put it in the chat so you don't have to say it again. But I just, you said best, it takes a village, and I want to be able to, because if I don't have the input or the ideas, the great ideas that can flow from Zoom calls like this, and to get those into the right hands of the right people to try to make it happen. So thanks again. I'm gonna put my number in there. Oh, hey, great. HG put it in there for me.
Yeah, thanks HG for doing that.
He's a frequent caller, so listen, after 9 o'clock, HG, you got to stop that.
Representative Jernigan, this is Paula Foster from Open Table again. I just want to say thank you for all that you do at the state level. We know that there are plenty of times that there are creative things that are trying to be done in a city and sometimes are stifled at the state level. So you're fighting for the cause and helping us do the good things for folks. We really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say that. And folks, when you ask what you can do to end homelessness, what can you do to help the folks? Part of it is advocacy. Part of it is calling your elected officials. And Jeff, I appreciate you doing this for your district. I'm happy to come and talk to you guys anytime. We have friends that I'm sure would also love to come and talk with you as well. But Jeff, thank you very much. Representative Jernigan, I really appreciate everything you do. And yeah, but everybody call your legislators and get them to fund the things that need to be funded in order for us to be able to meet the needs. The resources are incredibly scarce, but the need is great. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yes. And hello, I just wanted to say I'm Kelsey Combe, the homeless community bus coordinator for Shower the People. And I just want to let you guys know, if you did have any friends in your area, we do have 3 different shower services that we do throughout the week. And so on Tuesday nights, we're at Charlotte Heights Church of Christ. On Thursday mornings, we're at Belmont Church. And then on Thursday nights, we're at 4-Wheel Drive on Nolan's Pike. So just wanted to put that out there if any of our friends were looking for showers to help out.
Thank you for that. All right, everybody. I hope everybody takes the poll. And as always, like Darren said, we're here to serve you. Feel free to reach out anytime. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody. To leave the meeting, you just scroll down to the bottom
Night.
of your computer screen and you should see leave meeting there.